All right, today we're going to tackle a philosophical puzzle that's literally thousands of years old, but you'll see, it feels surprisingly modern. It's really a quest to bridge the infinite with the finite, to connect a perfect, unknowable God with our messy, complicated world. So let's dive into how medieval Jewish thinkers used an ancient Greek toolkit to try and solve it. See, at the heart of this entire thing is one massive question. If God is a perfect, single, indivisible one, completely beyond our ability to understand, then how on earth does that one single source create, well, all of this, our complex, chaotic, and beautiful reality? For these thinkers, this wasn't just some fun riddle, it was a genuine theological crisis. Philosophers actually have a name for this fundamental challenge. They call it the problem of the one and the many. It might sound a little abstract, but believe me, it gets to the very core of how we can even begin to think about the relationship between the divine and our everyday lives. So here's the crucial point. On one side, you've got the one, that's God, who is described as ineffable and indefinite. I mean, we're talking about something so far beyond us, you can't even put it into words or concepts. But then on the other side, you've got the many. That's our world, which is finite, specific, and something we can actually see and understand. How do you possibly build a bridge between those two opposites? And you have to understand, for the Jewish thinkers of this era, this was not just some academic game. It was everything. Solving this puzzle was the key to figuring out how God could be both transcendent, completely separate from the universe, and also intimately involved with it as its creator and judge. So how did they even begin to tackle a problem this huge? Well, they didn't just invent something out of thin air. They looked around for the best intellectual tools available, and they found this incredibly powerful system of thought just waiting for them, Neoplatonism. But, and this is important, they were super specific about how they used it. See, they already had Judaism. That gave them a whole way of life, a complete philosophy for living. They were not looking for a new religion. What they saw in Neoplatonism was this brilliant toolkit, a set of concepts that were perfect for building a metaphysical framework. In other words, it was like a blueprint for explaining the fundamental nature of reality itself. And this is a super important distinction to make. They completely rejected Neoplatonism as a religious practice or a way of life, but they enthusiastically adopted its metaphysical engine. It's like they were philosophical engineers, grabbing the specific parts they needed to solve their very specific problem. So what was the most important tool they pulled from this kit? It was a concept called mediation. And this was the architectural plan for actually building that bridge between the divine and the mundane world. Mediation is all about the how. It's the search for the means, for the intermediate steps that connect the absolute, untouchable one to our world, the here and now. Think about it. Without this bridge, God becomes a metaphysical irrelevancy. Totally transcendent, sure, but with no real connection to creation. Okay, so here's one of the most clever strategies they came up with. It was something we can call the doubling of the one. Thinkers like Ibn Gabirol basically proposed a conceptual split. It's like they said, okay, let's think about God in two ways. There's God and God's absolute, unknowable essence, and then there's God as the creative force that actually unfolds into the universe. And this is what makes it so elegant. This doubling allows God to remain perfect and untouched, in unspeakable splendor, while some aspect of the divine, let's call it the creative will, can unfold into the world and bring nature into existence. It's kind of like a way to have your cake and eat it too, philosophically speaking. So what does this unfolding actually look like? Well, you can imagine it as a kind of cosmic cascade, like a waterfall of creation. At the very, very top, you have the ineffable one, pure unknowable. From that ultimate source, a creative principle emanates, the divine will. This will then impresses a universal form onto some kind of primal matter. And from there, the process just keeps flowing downward, through layer after layer of reality until it finally forms the physical world that you and I experience. It's this incredible chain, connecting the highest point of existence to the very lowest. So you might be thinking, wow, that's a lot of mental gymnastics. Why did they bother with all this complex intellectual work? Well, because the theological stakes were incredibly high. They were trying to hold three absolutely essential beliefs in a perfect, delicate balance. First up, and this was non-negotiable, they had to protect the core idea of God's absolute perfection and otherness. God could not be tainted by the change, the messiness, or the imperfections of the created world. But, And this is the tricky part. At the exact same time, they absolutely needed to allow for God's presence and action in the world. God had to be the creator, the ruler, the judge, a being who is intimately connected to our reality. And last but definitely not least, this whole thing had to actually matter to people. It couldn't just be an abstract theory. It had to create a real pathway for the human soul, through intellect and devotion, to ascend back up toward its divine source. It absolutely had to be a two-way street. You know, what's so amazing is that this whole project isn't just some dusty historical thing. It's really part of a timeless human quest to understand our place in the cosmos, a quest that's still going on today. There's this quote that just captures the spirit of philosophy perfectly. The idea is that philosophy is like Penelope's web in the Odyssey. It gets torn down every night, but rewoven every morning. It's this constant, beautiful effort to try and capture that one single elusive pattern of all reality. The work is never really finished, but the effort itself is what's so important. Which kind of brings us right back to today, doesn't it? Those medieval thinkers used the best tools they had, Neoplatonism, to tackle the biggest questions of their time. So it makes me wonder, what ancient puzzles are we still trying to solve right now? And what are our modern toolkits, things like quantum physics, neuroscience, artificial intelligence, that we're using to reweave that same ancient web